The wind, a hungry growl through the ancient pines, carried an unnatural chill and the faint metallic tang of something deeply buried and best left undisturbed. Claire Bennett, a single mother, whose own life felt perpetually on the verge of foundering, stumbled upon a millionaire seemingly lifeless inside an abandoned bus swallowed by the forest. His legs were caked in mud, his body cold and frail, as if vitality itself had been siphoned from him. Eyes clamped shut, a death mask already forming. But in that moment, that heart-stopping, seemingly random encounter, a spark of fate ignited, destined to immolate their old lives and forge new ones from the ashes. That morning, the forest, usually a symphony of nascent village life, was unnervingly silent. No rhythmic thud of the ox cart from woodpine, no late crowing roosters, no children whining for early snacks. A deep, resonant hum almost below the threshold of hearing seemed to emanate from the earth beneath the green deep, a sound that prickled Claire's skin. It was the sound locals whispered about when livestock went missing or the well water tasted strange, attributing it to the breath of the deep. Just that soft, unsettling squelch of Claire's rubber boots on a carpet of decaying leaves, and her daughter's voice a stark counterpoint of cheer. "Look, Mommy, the leaves are falling like golden rain." Claire watched 3-year-old Lila run ahead, clutching a fuzzy wool scarf, waving a dried weed like a nascent sorceress. The sun, a weak prisoner, hadn't yet breached the dense canopy. Light filtered through the trees, less a breath, more a series of fleeting, nervous sighs. A raven croaked harshly overhead, a sound that usually went unnoticed, but today felt like a dire pronouncement. "Feels wrong today, Mommy," Lila had whispered earlier, her small hand tightening in Claire's, like the trees are holding scary secrets. Claire had dismissed it, but the child's unease burrowed into her own. "Lila, slow down, watch out for the whispering roots." Claire called a tremor in her voice she tried to mask. The old village legend of the whispering woods roots that supposedly ensnared the unwary and echoed their deepest fears suddenly felt less like folklore. These woods had always felt watchful, but today that watchfulness was undeniably malevolent. "And keep an eye out for Mr. Grumbles' traps. He said he saw a fox nosing round again." It was a lie. Mr. Grumbles hadn't mentioned traps, but a primal instinct screamed at Claire to keep Lila close. Her heart thudding against her ribs like a trapped bird at the unnerving stillness, the absence of even insect noise. Morning walks through this patch of woods, part of the larger, more ancient forest the villagers called the Green Deep, weren't new. Claire came often firewood-foraged mushrooms, herbs most folks dismissed as weeds. But today felt palpably different. Not just the muted smells rich with damp earth and pine, but now tinged with that faint, unsettling metallic scent. Not just the familiar sounds now absent. It was an oppressive stillness, a sense of being hunted like the forest was coiled around a dark secret. A few days prior, Old Man Hemlock's prize goat had vanished without a trace, its tether snapped clean. He'd muttered about the deep taking its due again, his eyes wild. Locals avoided this deeper stretch, speaking of places where the ground itself seemed to groan. "There's a big yellow beetle, Mommy, a really big one." Lila pointed excitedly into a thick, almost impenetrable clump of thorn-ridden brush. Claire frowned, heart-hammering. Vehicles never came this far. There were no paths, no logging roads, only the barely discernible animal trails snaking into unforgiving wilderness. She pushed through the sharp branches, wincing as one snagged her sleeve, took a few cautious steps, and froze. A bus. Its yellow paint was faded, streaked with rust, windows, mostly shattered voids. It lay half-sunk, canted, at an unnatural angle amongst clutching trees and strangling vines, as if the forest had begun to digest it years ago. But Claire, her senses hyper-alert, saw it instantly. The tire tracks leading to it were brutal fresh gouges in the soft earth mud, still slick deep enough to suggest something heavy had been forced through with immense effort. Someone had dragged it here, recently, and the front door's heavy-duty padlock gleamed dully, incongruously new against the corroded metal. Too new, too deliberately secured. A shiver traced its way down her spine. This wasn't abandonment. It was a cage. Lila stepped back. Right now. Wait by that big oak and don't move an inch. Her voice was sharp, laced with an urgency that made Lila's eyes widen. Claire circled warily. The air grew colder, or perhaps it was just her. The rear emergency door hung ajar, a dark, uninviting maw. She nudged it with her boot. It creaked open with a groan that sounded like a dying animal. The air inside was thick, a sickening cocktail mold, moss something metallic, copper and rust stronger now, that twisted her stomach. And beneath it, fainter the cloying sweetness of cheap disinfectant. A cover-up. Her hand, surprisingly steady, pulled out her phone, its flashlight beam cutting a swathe through the gloom. The beam landed on the back row. A man curled like a discarded puppet. Claire stepped inside the floorboards, groaning under her weight. He didn't move. His head rested against a spiderweb of shattered glass, one arm dangling, fingers brushing the filth-strewn floor. Eyes shut, dark hair matted with sweat, and something darker cheeks sunken. And the skin stretched taut over bone, a caricature of starvation. His clothes were torn expensive fabric reduced to rags, his legs caked in dried mud. A deep, almost surgical cut above his eyebrow had bled freely the blood, now a grotesque, crusted stain. Instinctively, she recoiled, then forced herself to take a deep breath, pushing down the rising bile. This was deliberate cruelty. "He's sleeping, Mommy," Lila whispered from directly behind her. "But he's very cold like the stones by the deep spring." Somehow the child had crept up the steps silent as a forest sprite. Claire whirled, scooped Lila down, and pushed her gently but firmly towards the exit. "Stay outside, honey. Play with your leaves, but stay by the oak." She crouched, her worn olive-green jacket rustling. Hesitantly, she reached out, calloused fingers brushing the man's hand. "Ice. Sir," she said, her voice a low murmur, shaking his arm gently. No response. She pressed 2 fingers to his neck, feeling for the carotid. Faint, thready, but undeniably there. His skin was clammy, deathly cold, but not yet blue. He was alive. Just. Claire didn't waste time asking why. The narrative was scrawled in the brutality of his condition, the isolation of the bus, the damning newness of that lock. Someone wanted him gone, but not cleanly. Left to the elements, to a slow, agonizing demise. 3 hours later, in her small, sparsely furnished wooden cabin on the edge of Woodpine, the man lay on an old, creaking bed. The pillow and blanket were threadbare, but scrupulously clean. Claire had just finished wiping dried blood from his forehead, her gaze fixed on the shallow, almost imperceptible rise and fall of his chest. Across the room, Lila hugged her knees, clinging to her one-eared stuffed rabbit. "Patches." She whispered a child's innocent pronouncement, heavy with adult implications. "Is he like the lost lamb Pastor Michaels talked about at Mommy Will Angels come for him?" Claire didn't respond, her mind a whirl. She wrung out the cloth and walked to the wood-burning stove. The fire crackled softly, warming a house that hadn't known a man's regular presence for a very long time. When she returned to the bedside with a fresh bowl of warm water, his hand twitched, fingers weakly gripping the blanket. Then, in a voice ragged as torn paper laced with a chilling terror, he murmured, Don't come near me. They'll find you. The whispering woods. It calls to them." Claire froze, not just at the words, but at the sheer, unadulterated fear underpinning them. The sound of a man hunted by something truly, monstrously terrible. Rain had begun in the late afternoon, a relentless, mournful deluge that continued past midnight. Claire stood at the small window, a cup of ginger tea long gone cold in her hands. The cabin, nestled precariously on the edge of the whispering woods, was dimly lit by a single, sputtering oil lamp. Across the room, the man, Jack, as she'd provisionally named him, lay motionless. Every glance confirmed a grim cocktail of concern and a growing, unsettling caution. Who was he, and who or what was they? In the corner, little Lila slept peacefully, her soft, rhythmic breathing, a counterpoint to the rain's somber hiss. Claire stepped over to check on him again, pulse still there, a fraction stronger, his skin warmer. As her hand brushed his skin, he flinched, not violently, but a distinct, sharp recoil that startled her, as if even in his deep unconsciousness, his body screamed of remembered pain. This wasn't a common drifter. If anything, even in this horrifically weakened state, there was an undercurrent of something composed. A face accustomed to authority, to control, now ravaged, but with its underlying structure intact. Eventually, with a sigh that seemed to carry the sorrow of the world, she stood and blew out the lamp, leaving only the low ember glow of the stove. The next morning, the sky remained a bruised, weeping gray. Claire rose before dawn, boiled water, and prepared a thin, nourishing porridge. As she carried the steaming bowl in, she set it on the small, rickety bedside table and gently, hesitantly shook his arm. "Wake up. Porridge. Eat if you can." He stirred, eyes cracking open, cloudy, exhausted, unfocused. Before she could utter another word, he jerked his hand away with a surge of surprising strength. The bowl tipped hot liquid splashing onto her arm. "Ah. Hey, easy now," Claire said, stepping back, not frightened, but instinctively wary, her voice firmer than she felt. "I'm not one of them. It's just porridge. You're safe here." The man's breathing was shallow, rapid. His eyes darted around the unfamiliar room. After a moment, a long, tense moment, some of the wildness receded. His lips moved, his voice a dry rasp. I don't remember. Where is this place?" Claire's tone gentled but remained steady. "My house. You're here because I found you. When you're better, you can go. No one's keeping you." He nodded slowly. "What do I call you? Do you remember your name?" He stared at the floorboard, silent, the blankness in his eyes terrifying. "Fine," she said, a touch of brusqueness entering her tone. "I'll call you Jack. You can correct me when the real one decides to show up." She placed the half-empty bowl and a glass of water back on the table, then stepped outside, leaving him to the echoing emptiness of his shattered memory. By evening, the relentless rain had eased to a sullen drizzle. Lila sat on the floor coloring. Claire mended Lila's coat when the girl ran over, picture clutched triumphantly. "I drew our house, Mummy. That's you, that's me, and that's Uncle Jack." In the crayon drawing, the man in the middle was tall with wild scribbled hair. Claire barely glanced, but then Lila whispered, "Mummy, remember that news show, the one about the missing rich man? He looked just like Uncle Jack. Same sad eyes, like he lost his bestest toy." Claire stiffened, her needle poised. "What show, Lila Bug?" she asked, trying to keep her voice light. "The one you watched while sewing last week. Before the big storm. They showed his picture a lot. He looked like him, only shinier and not so muddy." Claire didn't answer, a sudden cold dread coiling in her stomach. "Go wash your hands, Poppet. Supper time." When night fell, Claire brought broth to Jack's room. He was sitting up back against the wall. The lamp's flickering light spilled across his face. Pale, yes, but his eyes were clearer, steadier now. The frantic terror was replaced by a profound, desolate weariness. He took the bowl hand, still trembling, but less so. "Thank you," he said, his voice still rough, but imbued with a quiet sincerity. No need, Claire replied, her tone clipped. I help 'cause it's right, not for thanks or pity. He nodded. She turned to leave, then looked back. Someone like you? You're not a nobody. But your name? I won't ask. I'll wait. The stove flickered. Outside, the rain started again, a quiet, steady drumming. The next morning, the sun made a hesitant appearance. Victor, the man who was not Jack, was crouched by the porch, expertly coaxing water from a leaky faucet that had defied Claire's efforts for months. She set tea beside him. Drink. Mornings here can bite even after the rain. Jack looked up, a flicker of surprise in his now clearer eyes, and nodded. After a comfortable silence, Claire said gently, You're probably wondering where this place is. Jack gave a small nod, attention still on the repaired faucet. Claire gazed out towards the brooding silhouette of the green deep. This village is Woodpine. Small, clings to the edge of the woods like a limpet. 3 hours hard drive from the nearest town. People here, they live quietly. Believe what they see and distrust anything new. Not bad people, she added quickly, just wary. They say the green deep holds memories. Sometimes it even swallows them whole, and it doesn't like giving them back. She paused. I'm Claire. I do odd jobs. Live here with this little whirlwind Lila. Her voice softened. Her dad. He found the quiet life in me too much for him. Skedaddled before she learned to say daddy. Jack didn't reply, but the harsh lines around his mouth seemed to soften fractionally. Lila looked up at Jack, beaming. I did see you on TV, Uncle Jack Mummy, and I watched you wore a shiny suit and you looked sad like Patches before he lost his other ear. Claire's hand froze on Lila's hair. She squeezed her daughter's shoulder, a silent warning. That was someone else, sweet pea. TV's full of pretend. She turned to Jack, offering a faint apologetic smile. Kids. Vivid imaginations. Jack returned a ghost of a smile. She has observant eyes. He said, his voice a low rumble. From that day, Jack wove himself into Claire's daily rhythm. Up before dawn, sweeping, stacking firewood with mathematical precision, fixing the sagging door hinge. The way he worked, neat, incredibly efficient, bespoke a mind accustomed to discipline. Lila became his shadow, regaling him with intricate tales about the neighbors. One afternoon, scraping rust from an old hoe, Jack suddenly went rigid. A truck horn, distant but sharp, echoed. Not loud, but carrying a specific metallic timbre. He froze, eyes narrowing back, tensing, a hunter scenting danger. Just as quickly, the moment passed. Claire, shelling peas on the porch, had seen it. That fleeting look of primal recognition. She didn't ask. The next day at the village market, Claire noticed a distinct chill from the women by the well. Conversations abruptly ceased. Heard he's fresh out of the clink. Looks the type all quiet and broody. Ilara, known for her sharp tongue, said just loudly enough. Ain't no farmhand I ever seen, Martha added. More like city folk running from something ugly. Claire walked past, head high, Lila's hand tight in hers. Were they talking about Uncle Jack Mummy? Lila asked. Yes, sweetling, Claire replied softly. Anyone new, especially a quiet man, gets tongues wagging in a place like Woodpine. That afternoon, old Pete, the village elder, stopped by. Claire girl, here you've got a stranger bunking down? Thought I'd see what all the hen clucking's about. Jack stood, brushed earth from his hands, and walked over. Pete studied him. Humph. Don't look like the rumors, son. Cleaner. And you've got the set of a man who's known hard work, but not this kind. Still, he squinted, stronger than half the young lads I hired last harvest, I'd wager. Heard tell the green deep coughed you up. It don't often give back what it takes, less it's got a reason. Jack offered a faint non-committal smile. Just trying to be useful. Claire stepped out. Pete, Jack fixed the leaky faucet, the one you and Tom wrestled with last spring. Pete raised his eyebrows, a flicker of respect in his gaze. A short, charged pause. Pump at my place has been rattling like a sack of bones for days, Pete said abruptly. Drives the missus madder than a hornet in a bottle. If you've got the time, son, and the knack mind taking a look. Jack nodded. Happy to try. Claire watched them, a small smile playing on her lips. That night after Lila was asleep, Claire washed dishes. Jack, with odd, meticulous intensity, dried a knife. The rhythmic sounds of domesticity filled the small kitchen. Claire paused at the sink, her eyes stinging from an unexpected, fragile piece. Later, Claire cleared a small shelf in the narrow wardrobe. Jack stood in the doorway. He folded his tattered, muddy jacket, the one he'd been found in, and placed it there. Gently, silently. A month into Jack's silent presence, Claire found herself searching for a button. Her fingers strayed to a battered shoebox. Inside, among faded photographs, were mementos of Lila's father, Liam, a man who had vanished when joys became responsibilities. Her hand brushed a stiff envelope. An old severance agreement dated 7 years prior between Liam Grady and Harlan Corporation. Liam had been a junior data clerk. Claire stared, a cold knot tightening. Harlan Corporation. The name resonated, Lila's TV comment suddenly sinister. What had Liam been involved in? And what did it have to do with the man sleeping in the next room? The man whose resemblance to a missing millionaire her child noted. She thrust the envelope back. The Whispering Woods legend seemed potent. Secrets never stayed buried here for long. Especially secrets the Green Deep itself seemed to guard. She remembered Pete's words. The Green Deep coughed you up. It don't often give back what it takes, less it's got a reason. The morning air, cold and dry, announced late autumn's grip. Jack woke with a jolt, a suffocating sense of displacement. He stood before the cracked mirror, a stranger staring back. Claire, pouring tea, observed him. Another rough night? Jack nodded. The bus. Again. Dark. Someone calling a name, not Jack. Like a shout swallowed by a storm. He pressed his fingers to his temples. And strange symbols like old warnings carved on the trees near it. Something about restricted ground. Claire placed the warm cup in his hand. Let it come piece by piece. Memories are shy creatures. They need safety to find their way home. That afternoon, Claire took Lila to Maribel's general store. To her surprise, Jack asked to accompany them. The air in the village felt colder glances, more probing. Maribel's store was its usual comforting chaos. Maribel herself, whose sharp eyes missed nothing, was cutting old newspapers. Well now, Maribel said, her gaze flicking from Claire to Jack. The three of you out together. This one's looking stronger, Claire. Good woodpine air, or just your stew, eh? Jack offered a slight, courteous nod. Maribel smiled, a mischievous glint in her eyes. She pulled another sheet of newspaper, slightly torn. On its faded front page, Victor Harlan, the vanished philanthropic magnate. Harlan charity empire in turmoil 7 years on. Jack glanced at it, then his body went utterly rigid. Color drained from his face, his breath hitched. One hand shot out, clenching the counter. Claire saw it, a tremor rippling through him. Maribel, pretending oblivion, chuckled. My. The resemblance is uncanny, ain't it? Could be brothers. The hair, the jaw, those eyes. Like 2 peas from the same peculiar pod. You wouldn't be long-lost family now, would you, Jack? Some folks round here say only the devil or a Harlan knows what's truly buried in the Green Deep. Claire's gaze snapped to Jack. He shook his head, a jerky movement, but his eyes devoured the photograph. Probably. Just someone who looks like me. He managed his voice strained. He turned abruptly and stepped outside. Claire paid a cold dread solidifying. She followed him. On the way home, the sky darkened with alarming speed. Heavy, bruised clouds massed. A strong, preternatural wind whipped through the trees, carrying the scent of ozone and something else. Menace. The subterranean hum from the green deep seemed to intensify. Jack stopped dead. His hand flew to his forehead, his face contorting in agony. No. No, he gasped. Memories hit like a physical assault. A sharp shove, ground vanishing, wind howling, a familiar face sneering, a whispered betrayal. You trusted the wrong people, Victor. Always too trusting. Enjoy your final rest on Harlan land, brother. Fitting, isn't it? Where father buried his first mistakes, you'll join them. An explosion of pain and utter suffocating darkness. Jack collapsed, head hitting the grassy roadside with a sickening thud. Claire whirled, panic lancing through her. Jack, Jack. He didn't answer. Lila burst into frightened tears. Claire knelt beside him, shaking his shoulders. A battered pickup skidded to a halt. Pete, face a mask of alarm, jumped out. God's teeth, what happened? He's out cold. Get him in the truck. Claire, to the clinic now. The clinic lights were harsh. Claire sat numbly. Lila slept in a chair. Pete stood grimly. Jack lay utterly still. Then his eyelids twitched. Claire leaned in. Jack, can you hear me? He blinked. His eyes opened fully, no longer clouded. Sharp, shockingly clear, cold as polished steel. A stranger's eyes. Claire recoiled. Jack. He opened his mouth. Victor, he rasped. What? Did you say Victor Harlan? He repeated each syllable, distinct, weighted. Pete at the door froze. Claire felt the blood drain from her face. The name. The face. Lila's innocent pronouncement. Jack, no. Victor turned his head, staring at the ceiling. I remember now, he said, his voice gaining strength, becoming the voice of a man accustomed to command. I remember everything. Even the whispers. Claire said nothing. Her world had fractured. She quietly stepped out, clutching the moss-green, mud-stained jacket he had worn. She left the clinic late afternoon, Pete driving her and Lila back. Darkness had fully blanketed the ridge when she reached her cabin. She didn't turn on lights, immediately standing on the porch, in the chill night air, a shock. Claire made tea slowly. Victor was on the porch, wiping dried mud from his boots. Neither spoke. Rain began, a soft, insidious drizzle. Claire placed tea before Victor, then sat across from him. So, now you're Victor Harlan. Victor looked up. Yes, I am. Claire let the silence stretch. Then, yesterday, I saw you, staring. I knew you were remembering. Victor stared into his tea. I didn't know where to begin. Start from the part that hurts most. Claire replied, her voice present. Victor gave a dry, humorless laugh. The worst wasn't being pushed from that ridge. It was remembering who smiled in my face while sharpening the knife. He began to speak, voice low. Didn't die from the fall. Current swept me downstream, lost my memory. An old woodsman found me. Spent years like a ghost. Last year, fragments returned. Names, the Harlan logo, that bus station in Preston. I was asking too many questions about old associates, old land deeds in these woods. Claire nodded. And they found you. Someone did. Someone connected to Derek, my own brother, and his associate, Marlene Shaw. They inherited everything when I vanished. I was attacked, dragged off, woke up in that bus in your woods. The bus itself. It's parked near what my father used to call the containment zone, a place he warned us never to go near. Claire's voice was a quiet whisper. They wanted you to disappear for good. That place, The Green Deep. It was meant to be your unmarked grave, alongside other Harlan secrets. Victor leaned his head into his hand. I don't know who orchestrated the attack 7 years ago for sure, but Derek and Marlene benefited. This recent incident, it has their fingerprints all over it. If I go public now, if they know I'm alive, and remembering I'll die a third time. Final. So, what are you going to do? Claire asked. He remained silent. Stay quiet. Investigate. This time no one but you knows I'm alive. He paused. And whoever locked me in that bus, whoever knows about the old sins of the Green Deep. Claire's eyes were now those of someone standing precariously beside a man caught at a deadly crossroads. And Liam, a data clerk, had he stumbled onto the truth about Harlan Corp's containment zone? Was his disappearance also tied to this dark Harlan legacy? Before retiring, Claire asked, "How long do you plan to keep disappearing?" Victor replied, "Until I find someone beyond you worth trusting, and until I identify the one who truly needs to fall." Claire nodded. "Don't forget Victor Harlan. You owe me 2 things, a proper thank you for saving your life, and 1 solid reason to believe you're not dragging a Category 5 hurricane into my daughter's life." Later that night, Victor found Lila's old notebook. Under the heading Project Phoenix, he wrote in red crayon, "If I die again, it will be knowing precisely who pushed me. And this time, they come down with me. The secrets of the Green Deep will come out too." Early morning, Victor was in the dilapidated shed Pete mentioned. The rusty padlock yielded. Inside old metal damp earth engine oil, an old AM radio, dusty financial newspapers, and an ancient mobile phone almost untraceable. He spread the newspapers, his eyes scanning marking names with a burnt twig. Financial analysis, asset tracking, identifying anomalous cash flow. Habits returning. He also found a weathered leather-bound journal. Flipping through, he saw meticulous notes about soil degradation, strange plant mutations, and water contamination tests in specific marked areas of the Green Deep. All near where the bus was found. At the back, a crude map. And a signature, E. Hemlock, Senior Groundskeeper, Harlan Ecological Research defunct. Old man Hemlock's father or grandfather. This journal was decades old. Victor entered the kitchen. "I need more current data. Harlan Corp financial statements for the last 7 years. And more about this containment zone." Claire thought Liam's severance package flashing. The Harlan name. Maribel. She never throws away old papers. And something else. My ex Liam. He worked for Harlan Corp. I have his severance agreement. Maybe he found something about this zone too. Victor's eyes sharpened. "Liam Grady, when what department?" "About 7 years ago. Data entry. He left Woodpine not long after. Said he saw something in the files that made his blood run cold, something about old Earth contracts in these woods." 7 years ago. Victor mused. "Interesting. Can I go with you to Maribel's? I need those papers. And Liam's documents. And that Hemlock journal might make more sense with context." Claire nodded. "All right. But with Maribel, she ain't no city slicker. Let me pave the path first." Maribel's store buzzed. Eyes turned their way. Maribel looked up, peered over her spectacles, and stared at Victor. "Well, Victor Harlan?" she said, voice devoid of shock. "Or is it still Jack who's come a-callin'? What can I do for you two? Heard the Deep was whispering your real name now." Victor didn't flinch. "I need old newspapers, Maribel. Financial sections, anything on Harlan Corporation past 7 years, and anything about local land use controversies involving them." Maribel glanced at Claire, who nodded. Maribel sighed. "Won't let you take 'em. Read 'em here, in the back. I'll keep an eye." Wouldn't want any more Harlan's secrets causing a ruckus than necessary. In a cluttered storeroom, Victor flipped through newsprint. Pencil flew circling names, dates, stock fluctuations. Derek Harlan, current CEO. Marlene Shaw, philanthropist. A smaller article, Dana Everett, financial assistant instrumental in streamlining Harlan Foundation's remote charity operations, especially those in ecologically sensitive, isolated regions. Victor paused at Dana's name. She picked me up at Geneva. Last overseas meeting. Only with the company a few months. Ambitious. He then cross-referenced with the Hemlock Journal. A few entries mentioned initial surveys for Project Nightingale, the Foundation's sanitized name for these remote operations, which corresponded to Dana's early timeline. Maribel, knitting, clinked her teacup. Dana Everett. Read something about her. After you. Vanished. Rumor was she was promoted to oversee charity trips to the most godforsaken remote holes. Odd for a top finance whiz to be playing courier in jungles and forgotten woods, eh? Unless those woods had something valuable or something valuable buried. The pieces formed a terrifying, ugly picture. The containment zone wasn't just an old dumping ground. It was likely still an active liability, perhaps even secretly used. Later at the cabin, Victor handled Liam's severance agreement. Data entry. Access to sensitive files. Left 7 years ago. Did he mention anything specific about this old Earth contract? Claire shook her head. Liam wasn't one for details. Just said it was soul-crushing and that Harlan Corp played dirtier than a pig in mud. Seemed scared. Kept looking over his shoulder. Evening descended. Victor sat the ancient mobile phone on the table. He'd inserted his water-damaged SIM, charged the battery. In his hand, Louisa James's old contact number detective on his disappearance case. 7 years. Was she still a detective or silenced? He configured the old phone, searched for Louisa James. Old news clipping detective Louisa James reassigned to Civilian Oversight Unit West Point after indefinite suspension of Victor Harlan investigation. Civilian oversight, Victor muttered. A desk. They buried her with my case. But she was still there. He composed an anonymous email VH file. Urgent. Information re-unresolved elements and green deep anomalies. Meet where initial investigation halted. Friday, 10 p.m. Alone. Acknowledge via reply name of lead suspect unofficially discussed last briefing. He sent it. Switched to AM radio listening. Nothing. Good. 10 agonizing hours later, the phone buzzed. Unknown number. A female voice, crisp, wary. Detective James. Who is this? Victor's voice was ice. The day I officially disappeared, what was I wearing? 3 seconds of silence. Then precise, unwavering. Gray bespoke linen shirt, Savile Row, black cashmere overcoat, Brioni. Patek Philippe Calatrava, 51 on 19J. Navy Hermes tie, no clip, smear of dried mud, left heel Italian loafers. Victor closed his eyes. She remembered. Louisa, it's Victor Harlan. I need to meet you. And I have information about what Harlan Corp buried in these woods long before they tried to bury me. Abandoned diner outskirts of Preston. Louisa arrived, a plain gray coat, dark hair pulled back. She slid a thick, dog-eared file across the Formica table, then spoke low and tense. Tried to escalate your case. Mayor Nolan, close associate of your brother Derek, personally intervened, pulled the file. Reassigned within a week, case cold, on paper. Your father's old containment zone in the Green Deep. It was mentioned in early confidential police reports as a potential search area, then mysteriously redacted from all official inquiries. Victor opened the file. Forensic analysis of an asset transfer, forged signature his. His hand tightened. Louisa produced a USB drive. Internal audio recording. Harlan Corp main server archived at their law firm. Deleted 3 times. Remnants remained. Took me years off books. She pressed play. A woman's voice cold-chilling. As long as the signature looks convincing for probate lawyers, handle the rest. Derek is satisfied. Victor won't be contesting it, not from where he's going. That quiet spot in the Green Deep is perfect. No one ever goes poking around what father left there. It was Dana Everett. Victor didn't sleep. Red crayon lines connected names, dates, fund transfers, the reinstated will forged signatures cross-referenced with Louisa's file, Liam's documents, and the Hemlock Journal's ominous ecological warnings. Derek, Marlene, and Dana. And the Green Deep. The containment zone wasn't just an old sin. It was leverage. Dana Everett, 27th floor, Harlan Corporate's immaculate office. Her hand trembled. An unmarked envelope. USB drive typed note of documents legality hinges on the certifiable life status of the signatory and the environmental compliance of associated land holdings. Confirm yours. The Green Deep remembers. She knew. She was being watched. By whom, or terrifyingly, she suspected. She reached for her phone finger, hovering over Derek's number. Stopped. If Derek knew, protect her or make her go away. Dana leaned back, raw primal fear rising. Woodpine rain lashed down. Claire mended. Lila slept. Victor walked in soaked, holding printouts from the town library. Old zoning maps highlighting the Harlan Preserve, which ominously included the containment zone. He added a log to the fire. Claire looked his way. You're not afraid, Victor. But that doesn't mean you're not terrifyingly lonely. Victor looked up surprised. Claire continued stitching. You sit there confronting ghosts, preparing for war, but you don't share the load. She stood, placed a hesitant hand on his shoulder. If it comes to court, if you have to face them, I'll testify. About finding you. About Liam. About what this village knows of the Green Deep sickness. If you need me to. Victor's hand tightened on his teacup. A tremor ran through his shoulders, revealing a quiet, aching gratitude. That evening, old Pete stomped onto the porch. Potatoes, jerky, homemade rice wine. Need more than greens and willpower in this godforsaken weather, he boomed. When Claire retreated, Pete leaned towards Victor, voice low. I know who you are, son. Read about you. And I don't believe for one damn minute you just fell. Woodpine folks ain't stupid, just quiet. My grandpappy old Hemlock worked for your father. He wrote things down. Things about what your father put in that cursed ground. Said it would poison the future. Looks like he was right. Victor looked at him, silent, grim understanding. Pete continued, can't do much. But if you need someone to confirm where you were, what you did, how the Deep tried to spit you out, I'll speak the truth. My eyes ain't blind and my memory's still sharp. Next afternoon, Maribel bustled over. Seeing Victor reinforcing a table leg, she paused. They say you're a big deal in the city, Mr. Harlan. Or were. Don't care a fig about that. Just don't bring your city troubles crashing down harder on Claire or that little girl. They've had enough shadows. And try not to stir up what's sleeping in the Green Deep too much. Some secrets are best left buried even if they stink to high heaven. Victor nodded. I would never intentionally harm them, Maribel. They saved my life. She studied him. Someone thrown off a mountain once don't fall easy twice. And no weak man survives 7 years in the wilderness, memory or no. Reckon you've got more iron in your spine than a new forged plowshare. She sniffed, turned left. A tacit endorsement. Night fell. Victor on his laptop, Louisa procured connected via secure line. Analyzed the audio cross-referenced banking land registries Hemlock's journal. It's Donna's voice. And the land deals around the containment zone link directly to slush funds she managed. Can you get certified voice print discreetly? Louisa. Already on it. Report by morning. She paused. Any communication from Dana? Felt the pressure yet? Victor looked at the second USB, damning audio ecological report summaries on the Green Deep contamination, anonymously couriered to Dana. She received my inquiry. Currently deciding if I represent a warning or a death sentence she can't escape. Louisa chuckled, dry, humorless. And which is it, Victor? Victor's reply colder than the wind. Both. Claire saw him step out, a dark silhouette against the turbulent sky. She draped a warm shawl over his shoulders. No words. Dana Everett sat alone, city lights, mocking. She replayed the audio, her own voice discussing disposal of a life and fortune, and now echoes of discussions about containment breaches and falsified environmental reports. From a hidden safe backup documents transaction records, original land use permits for the preserve, signed by Victor's father and Victor's original handwritten will. With trembling fingers, she picked up her burner phone, texted, "I cooperate. Full disclosure, including legacy environmental liabilities." She dropped her head to her desk, a profound, shuddering exhalation. Next morning, Victor saw the message. He pocketed the phone, stepped out. Claire was hanging laundry. "Good news," she ventured. Victor nodded, a ghost of a smile. "Maybe. The first move made. Not mine." He took a clothespin. Together they finished. Derek Harlan scanned a Q4 projection. His finger tapped a discordant beat. Secretary tiptoed in. "Mr. Harlan, Ms. Everett has taken an unexpected indefinite leave. Personal reasons. Unreachable." Derek didn't look up. Turned to his monitor. Flagged internal security alert, Harlan Corp mainframe. Level 7 breach, remote data access, IP address unidentified, non-traceable. Subject files, VH, archive 01778 all. Green Deep legacy containment, protocols all. Derek pressed his lips together. "Victor," he whispered venomously, "you stubborn, interfering bastard. Digging up father's bones along with your own." Thursday afternoon. Wind shifted, hot, suffocating, smelling of dust and distant burning brush. Victor on the burner phone. Louisa's voice clipped, grimly satisfied. "She submitted it all, Victor. Walked into the DA's office. Sworn affidavit. The evidence is comprehensive. More than enough to indict Derek Marlene and unravel the environmental cover-up tied to the Green Deep. They used foundation funds for hush money related to that containment zone for years." Victor looked towards the Green Deep shadows lengthening. No relief. The real game had begun. Claire stepped out. "Is it done?" Victor's voice, a low breath. "No, Claire, it's just begun." Hundreds of kilometers away, Derek Harlan sat, fingers steepled. "Chief of Security, our assets. In Woodpine report. Neutralization. Locals. Sir, distinct possibility. Victor Harlan is alive." Derek didn't move. His finger resumed its tapping. Marlene Shaw walked in. Seeing his unhinged look, she froze. "Derek, what's wrong? You look like you've seen a ghost straight from the Green Deep itself." Derek didn't look at her. "If he's alive, then I finish it. Properly." Woodpine's sun bled below the horizon. Lila, inside with patches, suddenly looked up pale. "Mummy." Big black shiny car. By the gate. Dark windows. Claire dropped her carrots. Victor was on his feet. A black, menacing SUV, no plates. He froze. Recognized the aura. Professional, untraceable death. "Claire, Lila to the back room. Lock it, don't come out." She grabbed Lila, ran. Bolt thrown, a deafening crash. Gate torn from hinges. Victor grabbed an iron fire poker. 4 dark, hulking figures materialized, lunging. First blow to his head dazed him. He staggered. Savage kick to his ribs sent him sprawling. Metallic taste of blood. One goon yanked his head back. Should have stayed dead, Harlan. Boss sends regards, and a message about digging where you shouldn't. A high-pitched scream from inside. Mummy, Uncle Jack, leave him alone. Lila's voice raw with fear and fierce protectiveness. One of the goons laughed and kicked open the bedroom door, grabbing Lila. Nice kid. Shame if something happened to her. Claire screamed, launching herself at him, but was thrown aside. Adrenaline, pure protective fury, surged through Victor. But before he could react, 2 sharp cracks echoed. The goon holding Lila yelped, dropping her, clutching his arm. Claire stood in the cabin doorway, Pete's ancient double-barreled hunting rifle in her trembling hands, muzzle smoking. She hadn't hesitated. She'd aimed to wound, not kill, but with lethal intent. The other goons paused, surprised by the ferocity. Then more cracks. This time, shotgun blasts. Pete and Henry, the motorbike repairman, emerged from the trees, guns blazing, not salt pellets. One attacker went down screaming. Another took a blast to the leg. The remaining 2, realizing this was no easy cleanup, grabbed their wounded compatriot and dragged him towards the SUV, disappearing into the green deep as villagers, alerted by the sustained gunfire, emerged with lanterns and their own hunting pieces. Victor, dazed, saw Claire scoop up a terrified Lila. He tried to push himself up. Claire, passing the rifle to Pete, rushed to him. Victor, oh God, Victor, I thought they'd killed you. Her voice broke raw despair, turning to frantic relief. The SUV's engine roared, and it sped away, tires spitting gravel. Pete helped Victor up. Damn city feuds spilling into our woods like poison. They hurt the girl. Claire, hugging Lila tight, shook her head. No, just terrified. Victor took the brunt. Maribel stood nearby, face tight. We're a small village, Mr. Harlan. Seems your big city troubles and your family's old ones in these woods have come knocking hard. The villagers looked at Victor, a mixture of fear, suspicion, and unwelcome understanding. Claire stepped forward between Victor and the crowd. Her voice, though quiet, rang with conviction. This man was left for dead, and I brought him into my home. He didn't ask for this fight to follow him. If anyone has a problem with that, say it to me. Pete raised his head, voice rough but firm. Claire's right. In this village, we look after our own. And these 2 and that little girl are ours now. Any problem with that, you can pack your bags and find another holler. These woods might have their secrets, but they protect their own too when riled. The tension eased fractionally. That evening, Pete bandaged Victor's head. Next time, Harlan, yell for help. Still got a rifle that shoots lead if it comes to it. Maribel set down chicken soup. Getting yourself beat half to death. How's folks to season soup right if we don't know what ails you? Lila, resilient, patted Victor's arm. Uncle Jack's okay, Patches. Mummy and Mr. Pete scared the bad men away. Claire poured tea. Thank you, Claire, for not stepping back. Claire replied, not everyone gets to defend their home from armed thugs. Wouldn't want to waste the opportunity. Besides, her voice softened. They threatened Lila. There's no line I wouldn't cross for her. They looked at each other. In Claire's eyes, a fierce, unwavering commitment. Near midnight, Victor called Louisa. They attacked, here, at the cabin. Claire and Lila were directly threatened. His voice was flat. No more hiding, Louisa. Send everything to the prosecutor, now. And alert your contact at the Herald. I want it public by morning, the whole damn story, green deep and all. Louisa. All right, Victor, be ready. Once this goes public, no one stays behind the curtain. Victor nodded. I've lived in shadows long enough. Time to step into the light. The sky was barely light. Victor sat in a shabby motel room. Burner phone vibrated. Blocked number. Deep male voice, unhurried, laced with menace. Victor, you really think you're clean enough for the stage they're preparing? Victor silent. Victor, the voice continued. I don't want you dead. But I've had it done once. Don't make me do it again. This time, to the woman. And that child. Victor's hand clenched. Claire, Derek Harlan said, voice chillingly precise. And Lila. Home address, village, preschool routines. I have it all. A word, and they cease to be a concern. Victor's reply quiet, cutting like obsidian. Derek, touch them. If a single hair is harmed, I won't just drag you into the light. I will personally pull down the entire fetid swamp you're standing in, salt the earth of the green deep over your family's poisoned legacy, and ensure nothing of your name or wretched life is left but dust and bitter ashes. He hung up. Slowly, he buttoned his shirt, tucked a handkerchief Claire embroidered Jack into his pocket. Woodpine. Claire woke early, sky bruised purple. Lila. Mummy, why no smiley pancakes as Uncle Jack? Victor, still poorly. Claire knelt. Today, sweetling someone very brave has to stand up before scary people, to reclaim what was stolen. Uncle Jack. Claire nodded. Yes. And if anyone tries to scare him, I hope he remembers 2 people here always believed he was real and very, very brave. State Courthouse. Mausoleum of dark oak. Tension taut. Derek Harlan's silver tie radiated untouchable power. Marlene Shaw composed disdainful. Victor walked in. Every head turned. His eyes, those Claire first saw, dropped, for no one held no arrogance. Simply a man with nothing left to lose. Louisa nodded. Dana Everett, pale, trembled several rows behind. Judge entered. Gavel strikes. Louisa's testimony, unemotional, factual. 2 wills, offshore asset transfers. Incriminating emails between Derek and Mayor Nolan, suppressing her investigation, especially regarding the Green Deep site. Audio recording. Marlene and Dana calmly discussing Victor's finality and the containment of ecological data from the Green Deep site. Then Derek's lawyer pulled a disheveled man claiming to be a fellow drifter who knew Jack during his lost years, painted Victor as violent, paranoid, obsessed with reclaiming a non-existent fortune and concocting wild conspiracy theories about his family and haunted woods. The courtroom buzzed. Doubt flickered. Derek smirked. Then Dana Everett took the stand, her voice low but surprisingly clear. I was coerced. I was ambitious. I made choices. I chose silence to protect myself, to benefit from a terrible crime, multiple crimes. Then I chose to believe I wasn't disposable. I was wrong. The man who just testified against Mr. Harlan was paid by Mr. Derek Harlan's security consultant to lie. I have the transaction records. She produced them. This time, her gaze flickered to Victor, then the judge. I choose truth, whatever the consequences. The momentum shifted back, palpable as a physical force. Victor was last, voice resonating with quiet, terrible authority. I used to be a man who believed he had everything. I had no one who saw beyond the Harlan name. Then I became someone with nothing. No name, no memory, a ghost. And in that desolation, a stranger with nothing to gain asked me, "Are you hungry?" His gaze found Claire. That question, that simple human kindness, kept me alive. I am not here to defeat Derek Harlan or reclaim a fortune. I am here because I will not stand by and allow any child, any community to have their life, their health, their very essence stolen by those in power who believe they can poison the earth and bury their sins and then be told, "Be quiet, be invisible. No one will believe you anyway." A profound silence descended. 3 days later, warrants for Derek Harlan and Marlene Shaw. Dana Everett received a reduced sentence. Louisa James promoted to lead a new federal white-collar and environmental crime task force. Victor declined offers to return to Harlan Corp. His note to the interim board, "I don't need the chairman's seat. I need a clean chalkboard chalk and children with enough hope to want to learn the alphabet again." Woodpine late spring, sunlight warm. The old bus now cheerful honey yellow trimmed white. Side-bowled blue woodpine classroom where memory begins anew. And beneath it, a small painted raven. Old Pete touched up a painted sunflower. Claire adjusted a bookshelf. Woodpine children waited clutching notebooks, eager. Victor greeted each child. Some like Timmy hadn't spoken since his father left. Some like Sarah dropped out after bullying. All saw Victor's kind smile, knew he wouldn't judge. Claire stood behind him, hand on his shoulder. "It's done," she said softly. Victor looked at her, then Lila, front row, hugging Patches, beaming. He nodded. "No, Claire, now it truly begins." A few villagers still cast sidelong glances, murmuring about city money and whether Victor's past would bring more trouble. Victor knew. He'd started a small community garden, its produce shared, and had personally helped repair storm-damaged roofs. Trust like the seedlings in his garden needed time and consistent tending. Evening celebratory dinner. Pete, softened by rice wine, told outrageous stories. Maribel, complaining Claire's soup was a trifle bland, needs more pepper like some folks need more sense, ate 2 bowls. Lila on Victor's knee giggled. Victor said little. Fingers tapped his teacup. In his eyes, profound depth. He smiled, a genuine, warm, expansive smile that reached his eyes. Night fell. Victor peeked into Lila's room, asleep, clutching Patches. He pulled the blanket to her chin tenderly. Claire in the doorway whispered, "If today you truly chose forgiveness over revenge to build rather than destroy, then you'd already won, long before that courtroom." Victor's broad shoulders trembled slightly. Next morning, Lila ran to the porch. "Daddy Jack." She chirped, new name, a joyful fusion. "Are we teaching again? Can I help with chalk?" Victor scooped her up, smile lighting his face. "Tomorrow, little firefly. And the day after. And I hope for many more days to come." The honey-yellow bus rolled down the dusty road. Sunlight streamed through clean windows. Happy, chattering voices. Victor in front passenger seat, hand resting lightly on Claire's. "I'm here." Not leaving. In the rearview mirror, his reflection. No expensive tie, no harsh spotlight. Just a man. Finally allowed to stay. Recognized. Allowed to be called by his true name. And in his heart, a whispered promise. If someone forgotten can be so lovingly rewritten, who among us doesn't deserve a new beginning? Windless afternoon weeks later. Golden light over ripening fields. Victor held Lila's hand, Claire's in his other. They walked the path near the forest edge, the clearing where he'd wandered lost. He turned to Claire. "That day, Claire, in that bus, I didn't remember my name, my home, if I wanted to live. But I remembered one thing with piercing clarity." Claire looked up, eyes gentle. Victor looked deeply into them. "You asked, 'Are you hungry?' No one had ever asked with such simple kindness. No one had looked at a broken ruin of a man with a question so profoundly caring." He knelt, drawing Lila close. From his pocket, a small velvet-worn box. Inside, a simple, beautifully crafted band of warm, brushed gold set with a single luminous moonstone. He'd commissioned it using the last of Louise's cash and a small panned river gold nugget Pete had given him for luck and new beginnings. "Claire Bennett," he said, voice thick. "Will you walk with me this time as Victor? No longer lost, no longer running. Just a man. Choosing to stay. Choosing you." Claire nodded, a tear tracing a shimmering path, her smile radiant. The same unequivocal yes from when she first opened her door. "Say yes, Mommy," Lila shouted. "So Daddy Jack can put the shiny stone on your finger." Laughter echoed light-free. Victor stood drawing them into a fierce embrace. Wedding a week later in the village clearing. No extravagant gown. Claire in simple white linen Maribel found. Victor in clean light blue shirt sleeves rolled. Pete dabbing his eyes witness. Maribel teary brought cinnamon rolls and apple pies. Villagers set bamboo chairs, picnic mats, wildflowers, bread cider. Someone played an old harmonica. No one mentioned Victor Harlan, millionaire. Only a man who journeyed to oblivion and found his way back, not to reclaim fortune, but home. And a woman brave enough to guide a lost soul. Mid-ceremony, Lila ran up, flung arms around Victor's legs. "Daddy, my daddy," she called clear as a church bell. Victor froze, breath-catching. Bent scooped her up, eyes meeting Claire's over Lila's hair. Claire touched his cheek. "Still remember the day I saved you, Victor?" Victor nodded, embrace tightening. "Haven't forgotten a single moment, Claire. That was the day I was truly born again." They stayed till nightfall, fireflies twinkling. Laughter music. Something old, deep broken was finally blessedly mended. Not by money, power, vengeance, by trust, kindness, love. A few days later, they began renovating the cabin lovingly, transforming it into a true home, filled with light, laughter, life, and the comforting scent of a family of 3, finally at peace. Thank you for walking with us. Thank you for believing kindness is never out of date. That "Are you hungry?" can do more than save a life. It can resurrect a soul. We wish you light, warmth, courage to believe in new beginnings. Wherever you are, whoever you are, whatever you've been through, you deserve a new beginning. If you're needing one, perhaps this moment is it.